What's up guys? I had this video all published and ready to go, and Engwe reached out saying they have a special offer going till the end of the month, till October 29th. So if you're watching before then, go to their website, click on the link in the description below, takes you to a special offer. Put your name in to win a free special edition version of the X24 or X26, which you're about to watch the review of. It is what they call the Ymir edition. Ymir is from Norse mythology. He was a giant, which is totally an apt name for the X26. It's a big boy. The Ymir edition is a special paint job, blue with some orange highlights. Looks awesome, just like the black one that I got. So go ahead, click on that link in the description. Go get your free bike, hopefully. Now let's get to that review. What's up guys, this is Chris with Half Chrome. Today I've got the Engwe X26. Now if you're watching this video, it's probably not the first you've watched. A bunch of other reviewers have already gotten this bike, but I'm glad I waited. I'm glad I'm getting it and just reviewing it now because a lot has changed. It's got the same name, but they've made a lot of upgrades to this bike. It's really not the same bike it was just a couple months ago. Probably the most important change they've made, it is no longer required to open the bike up to get to charge this battery.
Come on. I'm gonna break the handle, Max. Super awkward to open up, and you have to open it to charge this battery, which I've unlocked the battery and it still doesn't want to come out.
I'll show you how it's done now. You also don't need to plug in to the forward battery versus the back battery. The cord always goes to the back, and you control which battery you use by what is turned on when you power up the bike. The modes are a lot simpler and easier to use compared to what it used to be based on what I saw in the other reviews. And finally, they've worked out a ton of bugs on this thing, as you can see in some of these other videos.
Look at this. Why is it only doing 16? What the hell, man? Come on now. This is embarrassing. Come on, man.
So what's so special about this bike? Well, it's our first fat tire bike that has full suspension. It looks gorgeous. This bike is beautiful. Not everybody agrees. I think it's really a looker. It's got that full suspension, which is definitely nice to have, and I'll go into more details on that. Also, the 2 battery system, as I mentioned, it has improved a lot, but that's definitely a unique feature. This thing's also a beast. This is the biggest bike I own. So what are we gonna go over today? Well, I'll tell you what we're not gonna go over. We're not gonna do a super detailed review of all the specs, all the features of this. You can see that in another video. I'm gonna tell you a lot more of the fun aspects, what you really need to know about this bike. We're gonna do a couple things I haven't seen in any of the reviews, which I don't understand. This thing is full suspension. Why isn't anybody going off-roading on this thing? So we take it off-road. That's one of the biggest things. We got all kinds of drone footage, GoPro footage, everything to show what this thing can do off-road. Also, you might have noticed the seat on the back. Why is nobody testing that? We're gonna put it to the test today. We're gonna keep it under the recommended weight of, I think it's about 50 pounds. We're gonna definitely go and up it above that as well. We're gonna go over the setup of this bike and give you some pointers of some things to do, some things definitely not to do. I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna wanna mod on this bike. So there are some things that need a little improvement, and there's also some optional mods that I did to this bike, and I'll go through both of those. Finally, I'll hit on some of the worst features, some things that still need a little bit of improvement, and then we'll wrap it up with some conclusions. So stick with me. I'll be right back to review the Engwe X26. I promised I wouldn't bore you with a bunch of specs, but let me just hit a couple high points. This thing's got a 62-mile range, and that's aided by the dual battery system. So that's really, really impressive. Of course, that's the stated range. Mileage will vary, but that is the most range I've seen out of any of the e-bikes that I've gotten. Ton of battery in this thing. Max speed 31 miles an hour, also consistent with my experience. I got it up to about 30. With a slight downhill, it will push you there. The weight of this bad boy is heavy. It's about 90 pounds. So this is the heaviest bike I have due to the suspension and the 2 batteries. You can make it a little bit lighter if you want by removing this forward battery, but I'm gonna leave it all in. 90 pounds, 90 pounds, it's heavy. It works for me, it's not gonna work for everyone. Last spec, the suspension. The rear suspension looks like it should have a ton of travel. In my experience, it's only about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. In the front, I can look at the marks it is making. Looks like about 4 inches or so, or about 100 millimeters of travel. Now for what we're doing with this, I think it's more than enough. It's a very cushy front end. As other people have stated, the back end, more of a looker, but having something there is definitely better than nothing. Okay, so let's take this thing off-road and see how it does. My experience was very good. Woo. I think this is has the stump up here, I think. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, yeah. Front suspension is nice and cushy. The back, front matters more. Like I said, the suspension was very nice to have. My other fat tire e-bike, you definitely feel the absence of rear suspension. You can take some air out of the tires on any fat tire bike. The max pressure 20 psi, you can go safely down to 5 or 10. However, when you're going fast on roads, the steering starts to feel very squishy, so I don't really like doing that. So having the rear suspension is a big help. And the front suspension, very soft, very compliant, a very comfortable ride. I found these fat tires to be extremely grippy, better than my other bike, and I couldn't really get it to skid out when braking. It always recovered really well. I felt like I was on rails with these tires, so that was a really nice bonus as well. Climbing hills was good. This thing's got a lot of power, stated max power, 1,000 watts, getting up to about 1,400 on the on-screen display. It will give you the real-time wattage. It drains about 37 or so just sitting there. Going along, cruising, it's much less than 1,000, but when you really crank down, you're going up a hill, about 1,400. And I'm pedaling up these hills, but definitely the motor helping a lot, of course. In the woods and at night, having the headlight built in is a nice feature. Brake light came in handy when it came to Jack knowing when to slow down and not run into the back of me with the drone. How about getting a rider on the back of this thing? One of the best things about this is having the built-in seat. Now there are disadvantages I'll get into later, but having that seat there, you got to use this thing. Now to support it, what I did is I put on some pegs. That's really the most important mod you can do to this bike in terms of adding features. It's not much fun to ride on the back without pegs. I got these on Amazon. Everything I'm talking about today, I'm going to put a link in the description so you can get them for yourself. These pegs have worked out great. I did take off the derailleur guard that came with the bike, and the peg more or less serves as a pretty effective guard, even when it's up. I'm not the first person to want to put someone on the back of a bike. You'll know this if you've ever seen Dumb and Dumber.
Oh yeah! Okay, let's go, buddy!
So of course I had to put Jack on the back and reenact one of the most epic scenes from that movie.
I gotta stop and go to the bathroom.
That's really warm.
The bike did great. The suspension held up. The suspension is super stiff, so no issues with the extra weight. I don't know why they limit it so much. Of course, it is quite a drag on the motors, and the acceleration is much more slow, with a bigger person on the back. Like Jack did much better with my son, and we had a bunch of fun. I'm definitely going to be taking him around the neighborhood, dropping him off at friends' house. It's way better than firing up the car just to go several blocks. So let's summarize real quick all the best features of this bike. 1, the looks. I'm getting a ton of looks. People love the way this thing looks. 2, the size. It fits me very comfortably. If you're a big person, 6 foot or taller, you're gonna love the feel of this bike. It's spread out, it's stretched, it's got the fat tires, 26-inch wheels, really good. The seat, we already talked about. Clutch. Suspension, clutch again. Extra travel in the front with the split fork, and some travel in the back is very helpful. And finally, like I talked about before, the range. This thing can go all day, no problem. All right, now that you know the basics of this bike, let's go through the setup real quick. I'll tell you what to do, what not to do during the setup. Overall, it took me about 45 minutes. I found the book that came with it, the instruction manual. Started off very strong, finished a little weak. One pointer I have is don't put the seat on when they tell you to. Save it for last. You're gonna wanna unlock the seat, raise the seat post to be able to get under there and attach it. So just wait till you're done, do it last. The seat in the back has 4 little nubs under it that you slide on. Don't try to take those off. I thought that was holding me up, so I started to loosen those. Leave them alone. There is one screw that locks it on. You will remove that all the way, and you'll need a longer screwdriver than they give you to reach in there and tighten that.
That was a workout.
Another tip, make sure you remove the red tab from the front brake before trying to put the wheel in. That tab is very useful. It keeps the calipers separated so you during shipment. But don't forget to pull it out. They forgot to mention that in the instructions. You'll have a heck of a time getting the front wheel on with that tab in there. It's not going to happen. Okay, so let's talk about mods. 2 most important mods are these. First, the pegs I already talked about. Second, the front battery rattle. You can hear that battery rattling quite a bit. So the other reviews are correct. It's not an issue that's been resolved yet.
This thing, I don't need to take it out anymore, but it rattles like crazy, so well, that was pretty easy. So you can see how much play it has, so I'm gonna try to fix that. There we go. Now sometimes this weird mechanism gets kind of stuck. Oh, there we go. All right.
Other people have talked about it. Now, while they made a bunch of improvements to this bike, they haven't fixed that yet. There's a couple stickers you could see were on the battery that maybe were to help kind of shim it in there. So I ended up adding my own shims. I added big fat pads in the front and thin plastic shims on the side. I had these sitting around, so it was very handy. You may not have them, you probably won't. So I will put some links in the description to those products. Very inexpensive, very easy to use. And with that, the battery rattle has almost completely gone away. In terms of optional modifications, I added grips. So my other fat tire bike has these pleather grips, same as what came on here. And I found off-roading on a lot of bumps, my hands would slip off. So I upgraded to something rubber. I'll put the link in. Similarly, I've never really invested in mountain biking off-road pedals. I've always used clipped-in pedals for my mountain biking. Finally making the switch now, so I got some more aggressive pedals with some really sharp nubs. Now my shins and my calves have suffered because of this. I'm still getting used to use these pedals, but definitely a lot of grip. The pedals that came with the bike are very good. Nubs are actually pretty big. But I wanted something really solid to help keep my feet on there. To go with the pedals, I even upgraded my shoes. Finally got myself some nice off-road pedaling shoes. These 510 shoes made by Adidas were about 60 to 100 bucks depending what you get. Got them on Amazon. Again, I'll put the link in there. Okay, that's it for mods. Let's go real quick over the things that could be improved on this bike. Number 1, switching between batteries. Why don't they all just kind of network together and automatically switch? As far as I can tell right now, it's not well described in the instructions. In order to use the forward battery, you just turn the bike on. Now that's the smaller of the 2 batteries. To use the one in the back, you first power on the button that's part of the seat post. So you could be at 50% here, turn the bike off,
then turn the seat post on and be 100%. So normally I often find myself forgetting to turn on the seat post and running just off the front battery. It'd be nice to have a more integrated system. The rattling battery in the front, I did fix it. It's still not perfect, I don't think, but it would be nice if that came with a better solution. There's a lot of cables running around this thing, and I've had other e-bikes, they're much more tidy. Everything's tucked into the frame. That's not for everybody. I don't think people really notice. It's such a nice bike. It doesn't really bother me that much, but it's gonna bother some people. A big one for me is this seat post. So it's hard to tighten it enough by hand to keep it from slipping under my weight. And the last thing you're gonna wanna have to do is unlock it while you're on the road. What if you don't have the key with you? So that can be a bit of a bummer. I don't like that you have to unfold the bike to get to this battery. You don't really need to do it anymore now that you can charge from the outside, so that's huge. But unfolding this bike is a hassle, and it leaves this big handle and hinge kind of exposed here in the middle. And I think I've dinged my leg on the hinge getting on and off, and of course it adds some weight. Having it just permanently integral would be my preference. Finally, it weighs 90 pounds. So my other fat tire is 86 pounds. It's almost impossible to get it in the back of the minivan. This thing's even bigger, and it's taller too. So it's basically not portable unless you have a pickup truck. All right, well, that's everything. Let's just summarize where we are. Is this thing a keeper? Am I gonna keep this one versus the other? Well, it's gonna depend on a couple things. I really like having the rear suspension. It's not nearly as much as it looks like, but it does make a difference. I forgot to mention the seat in the back. It does kind of take the place of a rack, and so it is hard to mount things. But for getting around the neighborhood, taking my son around, could be really nice. It definitely looks cooler than my other fat tire bike, but my other one is kind of a step through. Looks a little girly, but I mean, with the size of these bikes and having this on the back, it is kind of nice being able to step through. I'm starting to get used to it. So the verdict is kind of still out for me. I'm going to drive both these bikes for a while. The Engwe is definitely a beautiful bike, and it's going to be hard to give it up if that day comes. So thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you enjoyed this review of the Engwe, and we'll have more bikes coming your way along with all the other stuff we do, like drones. We'll see you guys next time on Half Grown.